Welcome and thanks for watching. I'm Susan Cheka-Lusignan, Director of Marketing and Program Development for the Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library. FFRPL is the 501c3 charity that raises funds, presents programs, supports special projects, helps to create specialized spaces, and purchases supplemental materials and equipment for the Rochester Public Library. Learn more at ffrpl.org. We are delighted to present this installment of the virtual version of our Fall 2020 Books Sandwiched In series of book reviews. As many of you know, Books Sandwiched In has been running continuously since 1956. We'd like to thank all of our reviewers who are participating remotely this season, and we look forward to welcoming everyone back to the library when it is safe and healthy for staff, reviewers, and the public. Our fall BSI roster focuses on diversity and inclusion. This presentation will be a review of Elderhood, Redefining Aging, Transforming Medicine, Reimagining Life by Louise Aronson, a Harvard-trained geriatrician. Aronson uses stories from her 25 years of caring for patients and draws from history, science, literature, popular culture, and her own life to present a balanced version of old age. Our presenter today is Dr. Stephen Rich. Dr. Rich is a graduate of the University of Buffalo School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry, and the Internal Medicine Program of Strong Memorial Hospital. He is board certified in internal medicine and geriatrics and has practiced geriatric and primary care internal medicine in the Finger Lakes region for 33 years. He is currently the lead physician and founder of the Geriatric Consultative Service of Rochester at Rochester Regional Health.
I'm Dr. Stephen Rich. I am the lead physician for the Geriatric Consultative Service of Rochester, and it's an honor to be able to review Louise Aronson's Elderhood for this group. It's an interesting thing when you're a geriatrician. Every time you go to a meeting, someone starts off the meeting by asking, how did you come to become a geriatrician? And this has happened repeatedly. I also go to other meetings. I'm also an internist. I was a primary care doctor. I'm a sailboat enthusiast, and nobody ever asks that question. That's the question that Dr. Aronson is answering in this book. And I think she does an extraordinarily good job of doing that. Now, when I was in medical school, most of us came into medicine through rather scientific backgrounds, biology, biochemistry, chemistry, myself in pharmaceutics. There's always a group of people who came in who were English majors or history majors, and Dr. Aronson describes herself as one of those people, sometimes called non-traditional students. This is the kind of book that a non-traditional student should write. The rest of us don't have the ability to be as eclectic as she is, bringing in issues of history and literature and philosophy that I think she does extremely well. The underlying theme of this book is very interesting, and actually it has a tie to Rochester. And Dr. Aronson mentions it a couple of times when she discusses the Biopsychosocial Model of medicine. This was developed at the University of Rochester by John Romano and George Engel and introduced in the 1970s. And it's a model that says that instead of the biomedical model of medicine, you have a disease, I have a treatment, I'm going to give it to you, we're done. The biopsychosocial model says that a patient exists in this milieu, social, biological, psychological, and in order to get the outcome you want and the outcome the patient desires, you need to address the patient in that complete milieu. She actually mentions a couple times in the book the biopsychosocial model, but it's very clear as she prosecutes her work that is her framework. She does so in an interesting way in the sense that she looks at her own development as a geriatrician and puts it in the context of human development, which fits into her overall theme that while we have well-defined childhood and adulthood, there's then this big hole. and it's either old age or something over there. And her proposal is that that's called elderhood. It's a very positive name, but I think she makes a wonderful case for why this third phase of life. So she describes her transition from birth to infant to toddler to child to teen, and uses that as she develops as a geriatrician through her experiences and her training. She does give a warning in the beginning of the book that this may not follow in a linear fashion, that it may not walk through, it may dance through. And as a linear thinking physician, I find she's at her best when the cohesiveness holds together, but it's a forgivable fault in terms of the overall quality of the book. The purpose I see in this book is to describe the work and the worldview of a geriatrician in our current American healthcare system. Now, there's a statement that many of you will be familiar with, that the American healthcare system, it's not about health. It's not about care. It's not even a system, but it is uniquely American. And I think she points that out as we go through, that our healthcare system is a reflection of American society, even our blind spots, and a big blind spot toward the elderly and their care. She is actually frighteningly accurate. I was actually caught off guard that many of the anecdotes that I tell, which I thought were one-offs for me, were actually related by her as things that she experienced. She talks about the Parkinson's patient that she missed when somebody else picked up, because the disease comes on so slowly. We often don't see it when we're working with the patient closely. She even talked about a problem with hearing impaired patients in the hospital and having to remind people that there were devices to amplify their voice. When Radio Shack went out of business, I purchased all their little stereo amplifiers and put them in the hospital. Later, only to find out that as a financial benefit, the hospital had eliminated all the AAA batteries that they ran on, so currently none of them work. So these are experiences that I was amazed. I thought they were unique to me, but to have them be common to another geriatrician. The common problem we describe in geriatrics and teach to our students relates to the old proverb about 6 blind men approaching an elephant. The one blind man will grab the trunk and say, "Oh, this is a snake." The other grab the tusk and say it's a spear. One will grab the ear and say it's a fan. One will grab the tail and say it's a rope. One will grab a leg and say it's a tree. And one will hit the side and say it's a wall. On the first day of student rotations here, we say your job is to see elephants, not pieces of elephants. That's what the rest of the system does. The geriatrician sees elephants. And Dr. Aronson captures that in many, many case histories of how a geriatrician intervenes on things that don't fit into our specialty-minded system. She spares no criticism in our society that is age denying and death denying, and how that reflects in creating a system that does not meet the needs of elderly patients, almost to the point of purposely ignoring them. An example that we've all lived with recently is our COVID-19 pandemic, where we've now learned that our healthcare system can't survive taking care of sick people. We need to have so many people that we're doing things to who are healthy, who we make sick. But when we actually have a pandemic of sick people, our systems collapse financially. They actually held up pretty well in terms of actually operationally. But financially, a lot of the healthcare system is in ruins. She attacks some of the focus, and I very much appreciated in her book that she goes after what is a sacred cow of medicine, which geriatrics, which is the ACE unit. the acute care of the elderly unit. This was a juggernaut. Every hospital that had a geriatrician must have this unit. Dr. Aronson points out, as many of us did early on who didn't jump on the bandwagon, said, does it make sense to concentrate all these resources and take really, really good care of just a few people? That the over 65 make up 60-70% of the people in the hospital at any time. Apply those resources to everybody to get the outcome you want. It was nice to have another heretic voice out there. I think she points out that our system offers off the rack treatments for diseases that require a tailor fit. And it repetitively does this by using who she refers to as norm, the normal person. The normal person is a middle-aged man who is computer savvy and can do all the things we want. Just this morning, I had a discussion with my staff that norm isn't in our practice. And norm cannot do telemedicine very well when it involves a desktop, 11 steps to verify who you are, and it just doesn't work. But it's designed for norm and not for the elderly, who are the people who are going to use it. What is a real strength of this book is when she describes her own personal experience with burnout. Burnout, which in some other fields is referred to as compassion fatigue in nursing, but it's a state of basically a disaffected doctor, not connected, forgetting why they were here. And while it's thought to occur in as many as 50% of doctors these days, she correctly points out that the tendency of medicine, organized medicine, and healthcare is to blame the victim, that you must not be resilient enough to do this. Most doctors come in having worked, as she points out, people of my age went through their residency when we worked 100 out of 168 hours in a week. And I think that builds some resiliency. But nowadays, when you are confronted with vast changes that are actually getting in the way of taking care of patients, somehow it's your fault. And so we need to send you to a class. And that's the way things go. The truth is, and she hints at this, but the evolution of medicine from a learned profession with a learned intermediary between the patient and medical science has evolved. And that was up until the 80s, medicine was largely a cottage industry. As it's evolved, we developed standards. I don't think anybody argues with standardization. There are certain diseases, there's evidence base for treating them. We should be applying that. But it leads to a slippery slope, because once we get standards, we commoditize medicine. You can go anywhere and get the same product. You can leave a Yelp review on your doctor. You expect a certain thing from any doctor. We are now at the point of fungication. A fungible commodity is a commodity where you don't know where it came from and you don't care. When you buy gasoline, it makes your car go. You don't really care if it came from Saudi Arabia or from Texas. It makes your car go. You probably couldn't even figure out whether it came from Saudi Arabia or Texas, and you don't care. We now live in a generation where people are very happy to open a smartphone and get the disembodied head of a doctor who you've never seen before and will never see again, and have them make medical decisions for you, even prescribing for you. And that's acceptable, and actually we're developing more of that. It's the growth part of the healthcare industry. This alienates a lot of doctors, and being forced to use electronic medical records, and Dr. Aronson points out, I think we use the exact same electronic medical record and have the exact same experiences, which is gigantic notes that don't say anything, and it's really a function for billing. And this has caused a major stress. I know many people who have retired, and she points out that these things combined into her personal burnout, and that she actually needed therapy for. The So I think this whole transition that she describes, even her own incapacitation by burnout, is part of the story of a geriatrician in the beginning of the 21st century. She does avoid, and I appreciate this, the tragic-porn, the horror of the gray wave, the silver tsunami, the idea that one day we're going to wake up and instead of carnivorous zombies out there, it's going to be hordes of old people looking for a sponge bath. You can delve into those tragedy scenes, and it's not helpful. Instead, I think we realize that these are problems in our society that we have not dealt with and will have to deal with if we're going to still function. I've been guilty of some of this too, having raised the possibility that global warming is actually a plan to drive all the polar bears down from the north into the lower 48 to take care of the problem in a way akin to the Inuit culture. So it's fun to do that, but it's not productive, and I'm glad she avoids that. In summary, I would say that Dr. Aronson achieves the purpose of the book, which is to give insight into the work and worldview of a modern day geriatrician. I think she does so in a very kind and humane way and very insightful way. She doesn't leave us with a particular plan on how to correct the problems she's run into, or more points out the problem. I think the problems lie appropriately, as she points out, in the society as a whole and in our death-denying, age-denying way of thinking in this society. Not all societies are like that. And some societies embrace the elders as wisdom, and that's not the way Americans think. So, would I recommend this book to somebody? Absolutely. I actually already have. And I would recommend this to my colleagues and anybody working in the field of geriatrics. One group of people I think I will definitely recommend it to will be the people who ask me that question: why did you go into geriatrics, or why are you here? Sometimes it takes on the feeling of coming into a prison and what are you in for, and how long you got. This would be a good answer to that, because I think she wisely points out the personality traits, the intellectual traits of somebody who would find geriatrics a rewarding field, but she doesn't spare the frustrations of being a geriatrician, fighting against a system that is more attuned to focusing on a specific organ system, a specific disease, than looking at the whole picture. The father of all American internal medicine was Sir William Osler. And he was famous for saying, it is more important to know the person who has the disease than the disease the person has. And I think Dr. Aronson speaks to that in this book. I think Dr. Aronson's style, as I said, there's points where it wanders and doesn't seem to be as cohesive to her format of development as a human being, but that doesn't really detract from the book. I think her writing style is one that will put her in the group of great medical writers: William Carlos Williams, Oliver Sacks, who she references directly, Lewis Thomas, who I don't think is fully appreciated, Lives of the Cell, and recently Atul Gawande, who is the surgeon from Boston, who has quite a national audience, writing the Checklist Manifesto and recently Being Mortal. And having seen him speak, if you have the opportunity, he's really as eloquent a speaker as he is a writer. But she would be in good company in that group of medical writers. So I would recommend this book highly. I see almost a frightening similarity to my own life and world experiences here. And I hope you enjoy it.